Hello again, it's Annie, and we are looking at how we turn up in our lives, and this is session 2. And there's a booklet called Turning Up to Your Life, Echoes of Hope in the shop section of my anniepool.com website. So you can follow along with the video section through that. So last week we talked about heart coherence, which is a fancy name for the breaking the cycle of the feedback loop where we stay stuck in our emotions and challenges that come along in life. And the heart-based heart coherence brings us back to the unconditional space, that wisdom space, that loving space, that spirit self space of who we truly are, because we are a spirit having an experience inside this body. Now, it doesn't mean that the body doesn't count, because the body feels the fear, it feels the intensity, and it sends messages to us. This neck's tight, this throat's tight, this shoulders are, gut punch feeling. It tells us this when something's going wrong for us, when we're not in the flow, when life is more like that, up and down. So why is it good to get in that heart space? Because it brings down the intensity and the fast thinking that goes on when the nervous system is impacted by something like the dog's being sick, or you've just told somebody to F off, or your tire's flat, the bus is late, you haven't got enough money for food or rent, or someone's really hurt you with a dreadful text or an email. I'm sure you can think of loads more things that worry you. So what happens in that heart coherence space is all those intense, stinking thinking pieces slow down. I'm not saying they all fall away straight away. The more you practice being in this space, the easier it is for those things to fall away. And you don't always have to put your hand on your heart all the time, although it's a good reminder. So you've got more clarity. It's almost like you've got a higher view of everything that's going on down on the ground. And you can ask yourself here from this space, what do you need to know? And it's not next day delivery like Whoosh or Amazon.com and all the other deliveries. Spirit will give you the answer when you need it, when it's most useful to you. So it's not in time. It might be instant, and then again, it might not. So, reminder, how do we make choices that help us? How do we go beyond the intensity of some of the challenges we face? Some of those challenges, when we're really scared, we blame the other person, we judge them, we project our feelings onto them, we push them away. We lose our boundaries, we forget our self-worth, and we go into lack of money, lack of hope, lack of belief. So many different ways that we can fall victim to the intensity and focus in there instead of stepping back into that beautiful heart space, into that wisdom space. So have you ever had anything that's overwhelmed you, took the wind out of your sails? I know I have. And I want to share a story with you. And to show you different aspects of life, it's a work-based story. And I want to give you a story where I show my vulnerability, and I'm not afraid to do that. So I was asked to go and be an executive leader in a school that was really struggling. And it was in an area of Manchester that was quite suffering from deprivation. And so I know whenever I work in deprived areas, the community are quite fiercely loyal to each other. And that's beautiful. That's a strength in itself. And so I kind of went into the school with this loyalty in mind. And I've got to tell you, I was pretty nervous because There were 300 parents that I was meeting, that I suggested I meet within the first week of my arrival, because I knew there was so much anger and upset amongst parents about their children. And, who could blame them? The school leadership had let them down for 2 years running. So when I went to this meeting, I knew that I wouldn't be able to cope with 300 people getting angry with me. I would just fall apart. And it wasn't about me falling apart. It was about us working as that fiercely loyal community together to take the school forward. A school is a really important place to a community for those parents to be able to send their children safely, knowing they could learn and get on in life. So the first thing I did was to go into my office and to get into that heart-based place. I had no idea what I was going to do with 300 people in that meeting. My stomach was churning, my knees were knocking slightly, and I knew that my hands were shaking. So not to have a cup of coffee with a saucer, because it would rattle in the saucer, and I've been there before. And so to make myself feel more comfortable, I went into my office in that heart-based space, and before the parents came, and got myself into an okay place. And it was in that space that my wisdom told me to ask the parents, as they came in, for 2 things they really wanted to move forward with the school. Knowing that there would be 300 different versions, 300 different perceptions of what they felt the school needed. That's human nature, isn't it? And I couldn't handle all of that in an hour's meeting. So I got some staff with clipboards really quickly. And some of the children that came with their parents, I asked them for permission to use them to take around these mini surveys, 2 things that they felt the school needed to move forward. And I glanced at them and I could see, just in that sort of 5 minutes of people coming into the building, that there were some similarities. The first thing was they wanted to be heard. Well, isn't that true of all of us when we're in a very intense situation? And the second thing was that they wanted something done about the reading. And there were a myriad of other things, but I knew I could tackle those 2. I'd seen it myself anyway. And that was good. Spirit had led me in the right direction. And I was able to reassure parents that evening that I could do that. So I want you to imagine 300 parents in a horseshoe shape and in a huge school hall, and me. I'm not behind a desk. I'm not sitting down because they can't see me. But I move as close as I can get to the parents to show them I am part of their community. And I get really present. And I make eye contact with as many of the parents as I can. I don't know how long that took, but that was important. And so I told them about the mini survey, and I told them what I'd found. And I said, you've all got a lot in common. I acknowledged where they were. That was important. I explained how I would listen deeply this evening and how that would look going into the future. I opened the floor to different year groups. I explained to the parents, we've got 5 year groups, there are 300 of you. Would it be okay if a representative from each year group spoke out loud? And they did. And so we quickly got the next step for school. The next step in the parents being reassured that the teaching and learning was going to improve and that I was going to tackle reading books. I'd already got some grants together, and I said I needed some parents to come and meet me regularly to feed back to other parents how the school was doing on the strategy of teaching and learning and moving forward. And then another group of parents to help me with the reading. I was inundated with volunteers. It was amazing. So bringing you back to this The wound, the wound was the parental wound, but it also could have been mine if I got stuck in that fear-based place. So managing the story that was created that the children weren't getting on with the teaching and learning, or that the reading was rubbish. And looking at it from a heart-based place, by being present yourself in that heart-based place, the people that are with you feel that connection and join you there instead of in the anger and the fizz and the chaos. Those two emotions in life really matter. The fear-based thinking that gets angry, judgmental, projects, it blames, it's fear, it's lack, it makes it up as it goes along. Or to be in that unconditional space. What a great way to show the children in that assembly hall how to be with their anger. We worked on that piece as a school. And I heard children say, Dad, you're getting angry. Just sit down and listen to Miss for a minute. You know you get angry. We've talked about it. You know what to do. Settle, get still, because in the stillness, this is me speaking now, not the child. In the stillness, your distractions fall away. Your thinking falls away. You get a glimmer of that heart wisdom, and you're back in your own presence, your true self, your spirit self. So you might say that was a simple challenge, and I was already a leader and I should be able to do that. Well, what about this next one? I am a coach. I'm a spiritual coach, and I coach leaders in school because that's been my background. I also coach other people. My key work has been in schools in the north of England. And I get a phone call at 6:45 on Saturday morning, and it's a head teacher. And that head teacher is absolutely lost in despair, doesn't want to live, doesn't want to go on, uses the word suicidal. And I listen. And as the fears begin to rise with that word suicidal, I notice, I observe them, and I let them go. I'm still a bit nervous, never had a suicidal person before, but I'm letting go of my issues around that, and I'm deeply present to that person on the phone. And I say, come around. I'll have the kettle on. And in the space of that person arriving, and I turn the tap on, and I watch the water flow, which was the equivalent of heart space. I got present to the water flowing. And it occurred to me in that moment that this was just a person with a worry. And the worry this time was called suicidal. The worry last time was called teaching and learning's rubbish. Worry another time could be the neighbour's not speaking to me. It can be any label, anything that you have a worry about. And that I knew what to do with worries. I'd had decades of experience of being present to other people in that fear space and not getting stuck in there myself, not colluding with that. So the wound was an Ofsted inspection, a school inspection that had gone really wrong. The story that the head teacher made up around it, they'd only been 3 weeks in the job and they didn't know what on earth to do with this huge thing. In the same way that I thought, oh my goodness, I've never dealt with somebody that's suicidal before. I don't know what to do. Now, you can either come from the fear-based place or you can come from the unconditional loving space. I'd already talked about these two with the head. So in they come in the door. And I say to them, sit in the chair and get comfortable. I'm just going to go and get you tea. All quite normal things. Invite in, be comfortable. What I'm saying is be safe. I'm here. I'm listening. Here's a cup of tea. Let's sit together. Let's just be in the moment. And I could see the head looking through the window. And I'd already introduced that as a way of being really present when there's intense challenges going on. It's a trauma-based thing. You notice the nearest thing to you, whether it's a view, a wallpaper, or a light switch, or your shoes, and you just look and notice all the small things, the small details around that view in the moment. Now, I wasn't just sitting there with anxiety going through me. I was really, really present to that person, to that head teacher, and they came down with me. And in that space, we could visit the story and its embellishments, and we could take one piece of, I'm no good at my job of being a head teacher. Who on earth would be after 3 weeks in the role? There are times when I'm no good at being a head teacher, and I've done it for over 25 years. The difference is I'm not afraid to ask. What I want to share with you is, who have you got that you can ask safely? Number one, listen deeply. Number two, who do they have that they can feel safe with at home, at work, 24/7? Number three, if they don't feel safe, make sure their plan is that they ring 111. You can ring the Samaritans. You're very lucky if you're in that space, if you can remember that number. It's on my website under Grief Without Walls. All the helplines are there. I can't remember that when I'm in a fizz, but I have used 111 who've directed me to the right place. 3 things. Get really present, get out of your own way, listen deeply. Make that person feel as safe as they possibly can be. Make sure they have somebody to be safe with when they leave you. Make sure they say they will ring 111 if on the way home their feelings change and they get suicidal again. Simple. Keep it simple, keep it safe. Ten years later, my own son completes suicide. Now, he had a diagnosis of psychosis, and I knew his despair had been going on a long time, and I'd done my very best to keep him alive, as had my daughter. But he'd decided to complete it. That is one of the most intense challenges I have ever met in my life. I remember the police woman at the door seeing the sign police through the glass, knowing somewhere in my heart it was Aunt. I remember that sensation of falling like a piece of paper slowly to the ground, hitting the deck, smelling the varnish. Next thing, I'm in a chair, my daughter's here, and she's handing me a glass of water that I can't hold. I'm so traumatized. I am shaking. I can't hold it. And she strokes my arm. The feel of her warmth on my skin. You might just lightly touch another person or be within their eye line so they know you're there if they're a stranger. How do I get from that intense fear that I have never felt in my life before back to the place of unconditional love? How do I do that? How do I get beyond the intensity of my suffering I got to say, I had no idea. I struggled for 3 months. In the beginning, I had to get through a minute, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes if I was lucky. I had somebody who was deeply present to me, my daughter, my grandson, my son-in-law, my family. I also had somebody I could call 24/7, a mentor and a really beautiful friend called Sue. I had monsters in my head. They came out in texts, and Sue got present to me day and night. I went through all the firsts, the first birthdays without Aunt, the first Christmases without Aunt. I barely got it through on my knees. When it came to New Year's Eve and I was going to start a new year without him, I couldn't bear it anymore. And I know I'm a spirit in this body, and I know there's a greater intelligence to life. So I went into the conservatory, which was Anthony lived with me, that was his den, and I lay on the floor, curled up, and I howled, and the fireworks joined in. And I said, help me, God. Can call that person Bob, Jim, Sheila, Brahman, Allah, Buddha, divine, spirit, mind, doesn't matter. It's a greater intelligence. It doesn't have a name, really. And I surrendered because I didn't know how to move from the fear back to love. It was so intense. And in the moment I surrendered, I let go of everything and gave it across to that greater being. I was willing, nothing left to lose anyway, but whatever little bit I had left, I was willing for it to go, for me to find a solution, for me to live from a space where I could be with my daughter and grandchildren and family. And I woke up -6 degrees outside, probably -5 inside in the conservatory, and I was not cold. And for the first time in my life, I got up. It was probably about 4 in the morning, and I went to bed and slept. The grief hadn't gone, but the suffering had. The grief's still here. You can probably hear it and see it, but the suffering isn't. And the minute I feel the suffering begin to come back, and it does, sometimes I'm triggered, I let go and let God. I hand over my intense fears because I can't see life. Like I almost feel like I'm blind in that space. I can't see a thing. I certainly can't unscramble my thoughts. I can't see clearly. So let me recap what we've talked about in making choices that help us. We make them from that unconditional loving space of the heart, from the wisdom place. And we had a look at that in the first session. In this session, we've talked about how to go beyond the fear, and I gave you an illustration of me in a vulnerable place in the workplace and what occurred to me from that heart space. Me in a vulnerable place with a client, first time ever meeting, suicidal ideation, getting out of my own way, surrendering, letting go, getting present to unconditional love, deeply listening from that space to the other person, not knowing what we would come up with as a solution, but never, ever being let down from that loving heart wisdom space, from that inner wisdom space. There's always a solution. It never looks like anything you expect. And then a decade later, actually experiencing the completion of suicide, Anthony's choice, experiencing that as a mum, losing her son. Let me tell you, the joy I felt when I let that go. I came down on January the 1st at 5:45 in the morning, and I opened the lounge door, and it was like a cathedral. I could feel Anthony's spirit. I think he was, when you let go of a balloon and it's zoo, 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 he was like that all over the lounge. It was full of holiness. I'm not religious, but I know what holy feels like. I feel it when I go into a church. I can sense the sacredness. What I met when I came through that lounge door was I met the sacredness of life in the same way I met it with the parents in the hall and the head sitting opposite me in the chair. This time it was for me. And I heard a voice that said, "Put the radio on, Mum." Radio, 5:45 in the morning, okay. And of course, it's tuned into Radio 4 because I'm an old fuddy-duddy on the outside. And there's Sarah Lackland playing Angel. That was Anthony's celebration of life. When we walked in behind his coffin, that was the CD we played. It's beautiful. Anthony himself chose it in his despair. He sent it to me by text. He said, "Listen to this, Mum, it's gorgeous. It'll make you cry, but you'll feel better." I had a weep. Like I'd had a weep at his funeral, like I'd had it when he sent the text. And the program was about a mother losing her son. It was about the Pieta, the Michelangelo statue of Mary with Christ in her arms. You can look that up. 1st of January 2023, Radio 4, 5:45 in the morning. It might have been 6 o'clock by then. And you'll see the schedule. A mother losing her son, the CD track from her son's funeral. My goodness. Thank you, Anthony, for being there. Thank you, greater intelligence, for taking me to the space of managing my grief without suffering. And now, in the next part, we're going to talk about transcending the fear and send you off with 5 or 6 different ways. But I hope already you can see the possibility, the infinite possibilities of simply coming into being really present to yourself in that unconditional loving space. No judgment, no thing, no fixing, no sorting, no trying to be perfect, just simply being. Just like my book, Simply Being You. That heart space of who you truly are. That's where you choose the next step from. And what I want to show you in the next session is when you get lost, and we constantly do because we forget about this heart space, what are the different things you can do to return to that heart space? Keep it simple, keep it safe. You matter. Stay safe.